This show is simply too hard to watch. Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 awkward The Office moments. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at the most cringeworthy and embarrassing scenes from The Office. Number 10, David hits on the new hire. An interview like this would have any potential hire running for the hills. David wants a new receptionist despite redundancies and budget cuts, and he decides to interview an attractive young woman named Karen.
Hey.
Hello.
Let's get you sat down.
Okay.
No, I've got one over here. Ready?
Commence the most awkward job interview of all time, complete with David essentially posing on his desk and asking Karen if she's explored herself while travelling on her year off.
Last year I took a year out and I went travelling, exploring.
Exploring yourself.
And just when things couldn't get more uncomfortable, David accidentally headbutts her while playing with a football.
Whatever. Bring your boyfriend down tonight if you want.
I don't have a boyfriend.
Whatever. Oh, sorry. That is a man's game. That is, yeah.
This scene is a perfect representation of David's delusions and ego, as he genuinely thinks he's being a charming lady killer, when in actuality, he's just an inappropriate creep with terrible office decorum.
That's why I shouldn't get involved, really.
Number 9, Keith's appraisal. It's not often that David is the straight man in a scene, but Keith is just so bumbling and airheaded that he upstages David in ineffectiveness.
Under strengths, you've just put accounts.
Yeah.
That's your job, though. That's just.
Throughout this episode, David is actually doing his job for once and performing appraisals on his employees. However, he hits a brick wall with Keith, who not only fails to understand how the appraisal works, but really couldn't care less about the whole thing.
Right, you've left this section completely blank, Keith. You haven't done the Q&A.
I thought that you filled that in.
It's an absolute joy to watch David grow increasingly frustrated, especially when he raises his hand like he's desperately trying to refrain from slapping Keith. Most of us have had to sit through silly work appraisals, and this scene perfectly captures the apathetic and exasperating results of the whole process.
Do you remember what the question was?
No.
Okay. We're going to leave that there.
Number 8, Gareth's health and safety training. As painful as David's attempts at wooing Karen were, they are nothing compared to the sheer disaster that is Gareth's flirting with Donna. First, he indirectly asks her out for drinks, only to be shot down mid-sentence.
Alright, I like to have a bit of fun when I'm teaching people. In fact, I like to have a laugh most of the time, in and out of work. In fact, there's a few of us going out tonight.
Shall we crack on?
Bad start, Gareth. And then he proceeds to give the worst health and safety seminar ever, as he treats Donna like a child, asks her common sense questions, and gives her an offensively small box to lift.
Nice straight back, bend your knees. Up. That's it.
And just to top it off, he tenderly and very awkwardly touches her arm and asks her about her recent sexual relationship.
You slept with a chap.
Right, are we done then?
Well, you made a mistake.
Well, I
That's
haven't
fine.
made a mistake.
I was just checking whether you're going to be sleeping with him again or...
It hilariously shows Gareth's utter lack of self-awareness, and it proves just how weird and unwelcoming his office is from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah. Excellent pupil. Fast learner.
Number 7, singing to Dawn. To cheer up Dawn following a major fight with her fiancé Lee, David decides to break out his guitar and sing her a few songs.
This is something I wrote. I hope it helps. The rose you never used your thorns. The ones you loved abandoned you.
His help is entirely unwarranted and unwanted, and to make matters worse, he performs a song that he had written about Princess Diana's violent death.
We prayed that you would be alright. The news came through your body cold.
But no worries, it works perfectly according to David and Gareth. David really does mean well. He's just ignorant of anything even resembling societal norms or appropriate reactions to difficult situations.
Fits perfectly, doesn't it?
Not the car crash bit.
And that's why he's such a brilliantly written character. We want to hate him, and sometimes we do, but deep down, he at least tries to be a good person.
Every breath you take, every move you make, yeah.
Number 6, Tim is rejected by Dawn. The entire training episode is just rife with cringe, and much of it stems from Dawn and Lee's fight.
You can say something, and then it doesn't mean that you can't ever change your mind. Does it?
It's not me that's changing my mind, it's you that's changing your mind.
Fine,
You always
but
do.
what's wrong with that?
Being that they had split up and sensing his chance, an exasperated Tim approaches Dawn and asks her out for a drink. However, Dawn is forced to admit that they have not, in fact, split up, and Tim is rejected in front of the entire office.
Would you like to come out for a drink with me?
I haven't split up with him.
To save face, he ineptly claims that it was merely a friendly invitation, but everyone sees through it, and Tim hightails it out of the room. Rejection is hard enough. Rejection in front of a dozen people who are all intently watching is the stuff of nightmares, and it makes for some gloriously awkward television.
Probably write a song about this one day.
Number 5, David's blind date. David's blind date was doomed from the start, quite literally, as David is visibly annoyed at his date's physical appearance and even tries to get out of it before reluctantly assenting and grabbing a drink.
Can I get you a drink?
No, I'll get one. Have you got one?
I've got
You go and sit down, I'll get one.
And then things get worse. They sit in a protracted and painful silence and discuss things like cow stomachs and lemons, all while David grows increasingly irritated at his date's lack of conversation or effort.
Is that your party trick?
Not a trick, is it? Knowledge, education, don't...
His date, meanwhile, doesn't seem to like David's condescending tone or general air of superiority. Surprise, surprise. This scene perfectly captures the feeling and look of a failed date in progress, and it's a little too realistic and a little too tender for our liking.
Would you want to do this again?
With you?
Yes.
Wouldn't have thought so. Oh my...
Shall we just...
Yeah. See you later.
Number 4, role-playing. Leave it to David to go too far during a staff training seminar. Facilitator Rowan arranges a role-playing scenario with David to show an improper way of dealing with a customer's complaint. It's silly stuff, especially for professional adults in the sales business, but it's still harmless fun. Naturally, David takes his role of the irate customer a bit too far, and his imaginary complaint is that a fellow guest has been raped.
Well, you're an ambassador for the hotel.
I don't care.
I think you'll care when I tell you what the complaint is. I think there's been a rape up there.
It again speaks to David's lack of awareness and his penchant for disrupting friendly situations, and it brilliantly showcases the office's signature use of dark comedy.
Right, so, well, some interesting points.
Very interesting points.
Flagged up there. It's not not quite the point I was trying to make.
Different
David.
points to be made.
I'm more into really in customer care.
So am I.
You wouldn't find a joke like this in the sanitized American version, that's for sure.
362.
There is no 362 in this hotel. Sometimes the complaints will be false. Okay?
Number 3, David pranks Dawn. The Office has a perfect pilot. It wonderfully sets up the characters, setting, and personal relationships, and it isn't afraid to showcase its protagonist as a complete and total wanker. Case in point, David's prank on Dawn, where he jokingly fires her without severance.
And you've made my life easier, in as much as I'm going to have to let you go first.
What? Why?
Why? Stealing. Thieving.
It's obviously a terrible prank, and it instantly makes us hate David and his ridiculous sense of humour. Not too many shows would have the guts to make its main character such an unlikable buffoon from the off, but it's what makes The Office such a classic.
Oh, now. That was the joke there.
It isn't afraid to be harshly realistic, and it certainly isn't afraid to give us some of the most unwatchable scenes in the history of television, this one included.
You wanker.
Come on.
Number 2, fusing Flashdance with MC Hammer. David just can't let his pride go, even when it comes to charity. Neil and Rachel perform solid Saturday Night Live themed dances for The Office, resulting in quite a bit of money for Red Nose Day.
Thank you very much. It's quite a bit in there. You can add that to yours if you like.
Alright, cheers.
Rather than just congratulating the couple like a normal person, David insults their meager earnings and attempts to upstage them with his own unique dance. The result is one of the most sickening things ever put on television, in a good way. This dance quickly became one of the show's signature scenes, and it has lived on in infamy ever since. From the atrocious dance moves to David's inappropriate grunting to the deliriously unpleasant silence, this whole sequence is peak cringe comedy.
So, and that's played, Dave. Yeah, wow.
Before we shy away from our top pick, here's some honourable mentions.
We have made the effort.
Yeah, I'm not having a go at you. It's just obviously the best people haven't turned up, and it's just I'm gonna shoot off back to the office. We're just doing the art of fancy. We're all doing it.
2 lesbians, probably. Sisters. I'm just watching.
What's that?
It's a dildo.
Is it yours?
No.
No. Well, I don't know. Sorry, this is an example of problems. Let's have a look.
Everyone thinks...
Shagadelic, baby. Groovy. Oh, yeah.
What was that shit?
Well, don't judge it. Don't slag... Come on.
Number 1, David's motivational speech. If there is one scene we have to watch through our fingers, it's David's dreadful management presentation. The whole thing is a complete catastrophe, complete with bits of Native American wisdom, David literally cackling to himself on stage, and a stirring exit scored by Tina Turner. You sort of feel bad for David, but only in a very minuscule way, as his delusions of grandeur are just too ignorant and abhorrent to witness.
And if you have lost both legs and both arms, just go, at least I'm not dead. I'd rather be dead in that situation.
With this scene, we see the walking horror that is David Brent out in the wild, and the results are just as horrifying as we had imagined.
Come on, trust me, you'll feel...
He calls it rock and roll, we call it utter madness that is impossible to watch.
Yes, our thanks to David.
You stopped it.
I
No, don't stop it. Leave it going right to the end till I get... Don't do that again next time, okay?
Sorry.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo UK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.